You're listening to the Coop Homeschool Podcast.
This is your podcast for community, humility, and joyful fun in homeschooling. I'm Mandy.
I'm Jessica.
And this is The Coop.
Today we're talking about homeschooling the only child. Yeah, tough one for all those out there who want to homeschool but have only one child at home.
Yeah, I don't have any experience with this, so I'm gonna defer to you on this one.
Yeah, but before we get started, let's talk about our scoop on the Coop. We have a joint one, and that is that we are working on our first book together.
Yeah, it's all about addressing the questions people have that keep them from wanting to homeschool.
Right. So we're really excited because it's content that we've thought of because or for the podcast, and then just being able to organize that all into a meaningful book.
Yeah, I think hopefully it'll be really helpful to people.
Yes.
And just kind of get some of those basic questions answered for them.
Absolutely. And so it's been really fun working on that already.
I know.
And we have the outline done.
Yeah.
Yes. So that was a short scoop, but let's get right into homeschooling the only child.
Let's do it.
So first, I want to talk about some of the biggest challenges. And so I think the one that comes up the most is just the social skills and socialization, because it is true. If you have one child at home, who are they hanging out with? You know, I mean, definitely you. And as you've known, if you've listened to our podcast at all, we find a lot of value in kids and us being their influencers and not relying on peer influence. But not having siblings means they're not even practicing sharing or conflict or anything with peers.
Yeah, I remember telling a friend of mine who I had just started homeschooling, and she was telling me a friend of hers who was going to start homeschooling their singleton. And if that's how you say it, I don't even know. But I was like, oh, I don't know that I would even do it without siblings.
Right.
Like that would be so hard.
It is. Yeah.
And she was kind of surprised by that. But I was like, yeah, it was just, I mean, I still feel the strong conviction, so I probably still would have.
Right.
But it just seemed really hard to do.
There's definitely some unique challenges that you would have to really think through, or as we've even said with general introverts, sometimes you have to just put yourself out there. And so I think that's a lot of times how it feels, even when you have an only child or a single child. And so, yeah, developing those social skills really is a big challenge. And so... Yeah, I'm going to get to those solutions later because the solutions are all kind of a one-size-fits-all for all of these other challenges. Okay. So some of the other challenges I came across is even like the group learning and projects. Like you said, you know, like the idea of homeschooling multiple children is fun. I mean, just with you having done your around the world exploration with your kids, that's so exciting. And if you had only one, it kind of loses some of the luster, the excitement. You lose out on other fun ideas and imaginative creations. You lose out on additional questions. And so if you get through the content with your one child and there's nothing else coming up.
The Atlas Crate, you know, usually had a game that they would put together and play.
Yep.
And even if it was just an independent game or a duo game, we're all watching.
Right.
And then waiting for our turn. And
Exactly.
It just makes it a little bit more exciting.
Right. Everything feels a little less lackluster for some of those things. Even theme days.
I was just about to say that. It makes it feel, I hate to say it, but even more worth it because you're hitting, you're checking off a lot of boxes at the same time. So all the extra work you're pouring into, all the candy or treats or whatever it is that you're buying or the movie you're renting or whatever it is, it serves more than one person. Exactly. And that one person is still completely worth it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, but it makes it easier to know, well, spread between the three of them. Now I didn't spend that much money.
Right.
Or, you know.
Well, even I think back to some of the theme days that you put on the blog, which are super fun. But like even your Lego theme day.
Right.
My kid doesn't want to do a Lego challenge by herself.
Yeah. No,
you know,
I hear
and
ya.
I could do it with her, and her daddy could do it with her too. But again, you lose out on the creativity of having other young people, other child minds in the room.
That's true.
It's definitely a different experience when you only have the one child and only adults to kind of bounce things off of and to interact with all the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in Harry Potter, for example, that one was more fun for us because we had your daughter there.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So with every additional child, it adds a little bit of extra spice and color to the situation. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of those theme days, while they sound super exciting and I see their value and they're super fun, for me, not all of them had been worth it to do for my child. Now, to be fair, I no longer have an only child. My son was born when my daughter turned 6. So for 6 years, she was my singleton, my only child. I had been homeschooling her for 2 years.
Since she was born.
Yeah, basically
been parenting her since
That's
she was born.
right.
Yeah.
But she, you know, we had already started the homeschool journey and all of that stuff before he was born, and then continued it when he was too young to really participate. He was just there.
Yeah.
So only now at 3 years old is he really able to be involved, but still it's intermittent and hit or miss.
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, because that's why my older two, who can read and figure things out, can move forward a lot faster on something and get something done. And I'm sitting with my younger one, who's like almost in a singleton situation, in that I'm one-on-one with her and the other two are powering through, having fun, doing whatever they are together.
And my little guy doesn't want to do things the way he's asked. Like, he wants to be a part of it, but he doesn't actually participate yet. So then, he's just along for the ride, or he's interrupting what she's doing. So then that's that other challenge, you know, homeschooling when you have other kids at home.
Right.
Yeah. So,
and we've talked about that on the podcast about homeschooling with a toddler, you know, how to do preschool and things like that.
Exactly. And so the other big challenge is that it's a lot of parent involvement.
Yeah.
A lot.
That is a lot.
And luckily my child was fairly independent and really enjoyed independent play, but there's no one to send her outside with.
Well, the only time that I actually can really feel that and relate to that is when the spouse takes maybe the older two to go do something, or whoever, but just takes two of them, and then I have one. And then now it's like, oh, this is my special time with you. And I'm like, oh, I was going to try and get things done, but okay. And then I'm like checking my watch, as much as I love spending time with them. At the same time, it's like, how much more do I need to be actively engaged in playing with these fairies, or playing Fairyopoly, or whatever it is? It's exhausting.
It is. And luckily, when you only have one child, not all the time together is considered special time.
That's true.
You know, because that child's not sharing you all the time.
Right.
So you don't have that pressure to kind of give them that undivided attention. However, you're the only one they can ask to play a game with.
Yeah.
So when my daughter wanted to play cards, I mean, she still can't ask her brother to play cards, you know. So there's still, you know, asking the parent to do these things, and then I have to sit there and go, she hasn't hung out with other children in 2 days, so I guess I should play this game with her.
Right.
You know, even though, like you said, I've got a list of things that I'm doing. So it's very high parent involvement with an only child, and that's neither good nor bad necessarily.
Right.
It's just a challenge. Yeah. It's a challenge you don't necessarily have when you have multiple children.
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, they'll play for hours without me.
And my kids are getting there, but my little guy's 3, so he'll still just throw a tantrum and ruin the whole experience, you know. But every once in a while, I get 30 minutes with them playing together peacefully.
Oh,
so we've talked about how I'm getting there. Like, I'm seeing little glimpses, but then with the 6-year age gap, by the time he can play nicely for hours with her, she'll be pushing 13.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But
and then you can devote all your time homeschooling him.
Right. But I've seen, even with the cousins that we have with the big age gaps, that doesn't seem to be a major barrier. They just play differently, and they figure it out. But siblings are also harder than cousins.
And there's something really neat about a much older child learning to play with a much younger child. And and there's only so long they can do that, obviously. But at least even for a half an hour, that's like
totally
a refinement for the older child as well.
I've always called my older child my little storyteller, and so that'll be kind of a unique thing because, you know, she already is writing books, and I mean, she's writing her own books and that kind of thing, and it'll be interesting to see if maybe that's a connection that they'll have. Like, she'll create stories for him as he gets old enough to appreciate that. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm not planning their relationship or anything, but so I think that, there's just a lot of parental involvement.
Yeah. So even if you don't have a singleton, but you have a much younger child, it's the same. It's similar scenario.
Yeah, I still often feel like she's the only child, because she's the only child in the house who's also homeschooling. You know, and that can be different amongst households. You know, because anyway, So it's a challenge, and we keep working on it and figuring it all out.
I think we've used challenge in this podcast more than we've ever used it.
That's true. These are my challenges.
But no, it just goes to show it's a unique scenario, and there's a lot of people who do it though. A lot of people homeschool a single child.
Yes.
And you're the only one with experience doing that. But there are unique challenges that go with that.
Yes.
Yeah.
The next one is balancing the introvert extrovert. So I labeled it that way because I think that having an introverted child at home can be difficult too, because they do need to develop social skills, and while they can work on that with parents, it's still not quite enough for their only interactions.
Right.
And so I want to make sure that we understand introvert, extrovert, those are not synonymous with shy and outgoing.
Right.
It's about how we as individuals recharge. So if you're an introvert, you recharge by having time alone and to be able to kind of spend inward reflection, or just, whatever you need. And then the extrovert.
But you could still be really outgoing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. That's how I would describe my daughter, is she's an outgoing introvert.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, there are extroverts who feel recharged by being with other people, which is usually me. I definitely prefer to be with people than to be alone.
But you don't need to be the center of attention.
Oh, no. Yeah. No, I'm definitely more of a shy extrovert. Right. Depending on the group, if it's my friends, I'm good.
Totally. Yeah,
I'm good. But yes, so I think that the introverted child it can be difficult because it's hard to push them. And then if they don't have siblings, they don't naturally feel comfortable either. So do they really feel okay going out into these moments? Are they going to even try to put themselves out there? Are they extremely introverted and not going to interact with anyone and just be fine to go home and do what they do at home?
Right.
Yeah. So that's a definite challenge for an introverted single child. And then the extroverted single child, that's the one who's going to need you all day long. And that was me. My mom told me when I was a toddler, before my sister was born, constantly all day. Mommy, play with me. Mommy, push me on the swing. Do this, do that. Because I needed people.
I think I'd find a neighbor that had the same problem and hook up with the neighbor. Yeah.
So I do think that that's an easier problem to solve in general, because there's a lot of solutions for getting out there and finding community for your child. But at home, the extroverted child can definitely be something that's...
Well, think of COVID. Think of how much worse that made things.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Here I've been talking about, we get more family time, and we're having more quality time. We're not driving around so much. And then, I'm not thinking of the person whose kid needs to be around other kids, but has no other kids to be around them.
Yeah. Yeah. So all those only children, we feel you. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. And then, so let's get into the solutions now. So again, the solutions are kind of for all of those challenges, kind of across the board. So they obviously involve getting some kind of community and support, right? For both the parent and the child. So community can look like lots of things, whether it's your church community, your neighborhood community, homeschool community,
your sport,
right, charter school, whatever it is, there are communities for everyone out there. If you like certain games, or you know, if you're a Tolkien fan, you know, there's a community for you.
Yeah.
And so that can be a really great way to get your kid involved in something that they might feel really connected with, or that the whole family can kind of feel connected with. And so communities are great because you often get kids of multiple age ranges. You know, you're not limited to just the second graders only, and that's the only age group your child is interacting with when they're 7. You know, so it's really nice to have a big community for those purposes, and then to have those couple of really great friends. I know for my daughter, some of her best community was really her cousins, and we are extremely blessed to have that, and we know that, and that's a huge factor whenever we consider relocating.
Yes.
We can't leave those cousins.
Well, and you're there twice a week, right?
Yeah. So Cousin Tuesday and Cousin Friday.
Yeah. So with that already, those are like you said, a community, but also like built-in siblings.
Absolutely. And it wasn't always that way. It evolved into having those designed days around my work, mostly. But it became this thing that is now a tradition. And now even when I talk about changing my hours, my sister-in-law and I always sit there and go, oh, but these kids love it. They miss it when we skip even 1 week or 1 day. They miss it. And so that's something really special. So I know that that's a unique scenario as well, but we are very lucky, and they have become our true community along with our co-op.
Right.
So our personal coop group has been a huge blessing to us as well, especially before August was born. You know, Sophia had her really good friends, and that was so great. And it made play dates good also, because she got to have the challenge of interacting with multiple children and having conflict and being able to resolve conflict and think about other people's feelings and that kind of thing, something she never had to do.
I know. I mean, even just for mine, you treat a sibling different than you do a friend,
for
too.
Sure.
So with the co-op, there were times where my kids did not want to go to it because they said it's too hard. It's too hard to try and include everybody. Right. It's too hard, too hard to notice the person sitting over there. Because I'd be like, your job is to look for who's sitting by themselves.
Right.
And you go be their friend, right? And they're like, it's exhausting. And it's like, yeah, what? Like, sometimes I just want to play with whoever has the skills to play,
Right.
But I always felt bad for those who were alone,
right?
And who didn't have a sibling to
right.
buddy up with them and make sure that
that's the introverted single child, probably, who doesn't naturally know how to put themselves out there because that's not something that they are naturally skilled with. And there's only so much a parent can do to coach them.
I know, and so I'd be like, go ask so and so if they want to be part of that, and then they come back and they'd say, well, they said no, and then you have to say, well, then you just let them not be part of it, even though they might have just said no because they weren't sure what was being asked and they were scared and so I've pulled back on that a lot, and now they love doing the coop group,
and they're older too, so navigating those social situations are different. They're more comfortable with our group of kids.
And so that's part of having chemistry that when you only get together a few times, then it's like an experiment every time,
right?
But if you get together, the more often you get together, it's an expected experimental reaction, right? So if you can expect the chemistry, then it's a little bit easier. And so if you need to find a co-op, it might be good to find one that meets more regularly. Like there's some that meet every week.
Right.
We meet once a month. We've tried meeting almost weekly for play at the safari park or whatever.
But attendance is low.
It was. So we went back to the once a monther, and attendance is really great at once a month.
And at least for now, while things are still hard to get to, we can't just go meet up at the trampoline park still here in San Diego. So there's challenges to meeting up more often because we have to either open our homes or be outside, which is hard in the winter. So yeah, that's a real challenge, but I do recommend if you have an only child, finding something that meets more regularly, just because it's nice for those only children to have that to look forward to and to be able to kind of plan around, especially those introverted ones. It may take a few weeks before engagement happens, maybe even longer, but they're bound to eventually, with the right group, the right circumstance, find a few connections.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then of course there's the group lessons.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, that's what kicked off our Coop group, was my daughter being in dance lessons.
Yeah.
And so that was fantastic. Music lessons. There's all kinds of amazing lessons out there. Some even just going to the library. I've had friends meet other friends at the library of all places, because they would go to the same music class at the library every Friday morning, the toddler music class or whatever it is.
Well, and let's look at Little League, for example.
Yeah.
So my son was 3, and so we didn't have any friends yet because we were new to the city. And so I was super friendly.
Right.
So I put myself out there and decided to get to know the people around me. And one of the moms I met, who was super introverted and shy, she told me that her child dances at where you teach.
Right.
And then I was like, oh, well, when she turns 3, I'll put her in.
Yep.
And I did. And then that's how we felt. So even that brought me to a totally different community. It wasn't even the Little League community, because those teams change every season.
Right.
I mean, not all states do it that way. Not all cities do it that way. But our cities do that. They draft every single time. So you don't even have consistent community there.
No.
But because I made friends with people there, then I got directed to a whole nother community.
Exactly.
So you never know, by putting yourself out there. Just be willing to do that. Even if you are an introvert or you're a shy extrovert or whatever.
Yeah.
Be willing to do that, because if you're team mom, if you sign up to be team mom, you're going to meet everybody. You get everybody's emails, and then you can see who you gel with.
Yep.
Whatever it is. Or be willing to be the one who puts on the Christmas party for the co-op. You know, like even if it's a co-op that you're not really part of, like some people drop their kids off at the co-ops.
Right. Certain types of co-ops.
Be the one then that volunteers, so you can see how your child interacts with everybody, and then you can navigate that as well.
Absolutely. I think that we talk about it a little bit in our Mom Friends episode as well. And it's really just important to, as the parent, to just put yourself out there. Yeah. Community is essential in whatever way you need it to be. My community is going to look a lot different than maybe a more introverted mom or a mom with a single child, somewhere in a different city. Right. All those circumstances are going to be very different. Or having a boy who's interested in more STEM stuff is very different than my child who's interested in fantasy and,
And I mean, you think about it, it's like even Legoland used to have a STEM class that you go to 2 days a week. Yeah. And that's a drop off. But if you're a mom who can get there early and hang out or, before you pick up, then talk with the other moms. Who knows?
Right. Or ask your kid, hey, did you talk to anyone? What's that person's name? Go find that parent and make friends, because that's important. If your kid naturally is talking to somebody, that's an important thing. And so if it's happening outside of where you are, like a class situation, find out.
Yeah. I mean, we were at a birthday party and really liked this mom that was there. And we said, do you have a co-op? And she said, well, I'm looking to get into one. We're like, come join ours.
Right. Done.
Yeah.
And it's been a year and a half, and we love her.
Yeah.
Hopefully she's listening and she knows who she is.
She was already vetted by our friend up the street, though. So we already knew she was probably quality, Yeah.
Great fit. And that's the fun part, is that all the communities look different. I can't even tell you how many times I see on a Facebook homeschooling group, people looking for someone to connect with, looking for someone who has a kid their age, interested in similar things, who wants to meet up on these days. It's seriously like a singles board. I think we said that in that episode too, but it's like that because people are looking for connection. And it's just an important aspect to having an only child. Got to get out there. Yeah. So then I thought I would end with sharing the joys of having an only child.
Yeah, that's
because there are some good ways at looking at it, of course, because whether you had an only child by choice or not, there's a beauty to it. And I think that there's just some serious bonding. We had 6 years with Sophia alone.
Yeah.
And we homeschooled her. We never sent her, we sent her to cool farm schools
totally,
and things like that. But she was with us. We know that kid as well as you can know someone.
Well, I mean, think of like all the analysis, not that we're analyzing our children all the time. But,
always.
Yeah. But think of all the ways you can really be present.
Right.
And pay attention.
Right.
Whereas I noticed with each new kid coming in, like for our family, it was like less and less I knew what was going on with them. You know, and
I know.
I'm not going to sit there and try and analyze one of my children for an hour at night. Like I have other things I have to get handled. Right. So yeah, having that bonding time and really getting to know them is something only the last child living at home will get in our house. And that's when she doesn't want it.
Exactly. And that's what's so unique too is, we were just there for every step with undivided attention for that child of ours for 6 years, not just for maybe the first 2 or first 1.5. And it's not even that way with such a large age gap with my little guy. There's times where my husband and I will look at each other. Have we ever sung him the ABCs?
I know.
Does he even know that?
Yeah.
Whereas with my daughter, everything was very intentional and laid out. And, in my mind, I was checking some boxes, even though I wasn't overly stressed about it. But it's just such a different experience. So I even thought my little guy would be somewhat like an only child, but it's not. Not at all.
Yeah.
He can't be.
Right.
He's not.
Yeah.
But my older daughter was. She was not just the oldest; she was the only child for so long.
I think how many years? Like a 5-year. Even if they had multiple siblings, I think it's like
I think it was either 4 or 5.
5-year makes them a single child,
right? By personality. So if you're talking about like first child personality, second born, that kind of thing, I think it's 4 or 5 years. It blows the birth order. That wasn't right. The birth order out of the water. It just doesn't account for much. So my daughter's kind of more an only child than she is a firstborn.
Well, yeah, and you think of it like my second child was born before my first one was even 2.
Right.
So for those 9 months. So I think when he was like a year and 1 month when I got pregnant. So I'm already throwing up.
Right.
I'm already just needing to come home from work and be in bed.
Right.
And all that. So I finally just got out of the fog of having a newborn and an infant. And then now I'm pregnant again.
Right.
So it's not even like you get those 2 years with that child anyways. No. Like you're just surviving and now you're just surviving again in a different way,
Yep. Then you throw a third one in there.
I know. Yeah.
No, I think there's parts of that I feel like I missed out on a tiny bit, but you get what you get and you learn to find the joys in it, right?
And you don't throw a fit.
And you don't throw a fit. So we talked about the bonding. There's the undivided attention. There's the truly personalized education component.
Completely, yes.
Because there's no one for her to compete with.
Yeah.
So your kids have to compromise all the time for what they learn.
Yeah, I think we were talking on a previous podcast that, if I could have a trained curriculum where everything surrounds that, it would be, perfect for my son. But I'm not going to ask my other 2 to do that.
Right.
So while I try and personalize their education, I can only personalize it for the 3 of them to share financially as well. Like I'm not going to go buy different curriculums for each of them.
Right.
They all had to share the Kiwi Crate Atlas Crate because I only bought one. I'm like, I don't need 3 globes. I don't need 3 games. I don't need 3 recipes of the same thing.
Not for the same box.
Yeah.
No.
So we're just going to do one box, and then they had to negotiate who got to do this craft, who's going to share this craft, who's
there are some cool ones that have like the sibling add-ons.
Yeah, and I don't think I figured that to do that, but I know Green Kids Craft, we did that.
Because they can send you the extra supplies without sending you all the extra instructions.
Right, and that would all come in the same box even. Right. So I loved that for Green Kids Craft, but since I ordered the Kiwi ones through our charter school.
Right, it's different. Yeah. It's more complicated. Yeah. The ease of planning. When you only have one schedule.
Yeah.
You only have one kid to cart around. Let me tell you, you don't have to compromise other than they can't do everything, right? But you don't have to say, oh, I can't take you to that thing because
So my husband would have to get off work early because I'd be at dance and my son's baseball would start before dance was going to be over.
Right.
So then my husband would get off work early to take him to...
Right. You do the shuffle.
Yeah. And it was nice because where he works was really near where she did dance. But for others, it wouldn't possibly be that way.
No, it's not always that easy. And it comes down to, oh, sorry, one of you can't do
and that's why now we coordinate. Now, oh, my son's going to do flag football. Let's look at the other sports. Hey, girls, do you want to do lacrosse? Or do you want to do soccer? It's at the same time.
Right. That's what you get.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more opportunity to not just personalize, but to just have an easier time of planning. Adventures are simple.
You're not carting around a little baby or worrying about diapers.
Or worried about someone not liking the adventure. The train museum.
Yeah, totally.
It should be an adventure. It doesn't matter if you're actually interested in the train museum, right? But inevitably,
one wants to stay looking at the window where the other ones want to keep going. Right. Well, let me tell you how hard Disneyland is with kids who have different tolerances for different types of rides. If I listened to all my kids' tolerances and was not going to have it where they ever cried on a ride, we wouldn't literally get to go on any ride other than Small World.
And then the practicality of you taking each kid separately on separate mommy dates.
Oh yeah.
That's really difficult because
for something like that. So what we figured out to do is when my dad would come, we would say, okay, 2 hours. He has 2 kids, I have 1. Right. And then we do whatever that one kid wants for those 2 hours.
That's really cool. So you did find a way to accommodate.
We figured it out. Yeah. So then they made sure one time Micah just wanted to ride the train the whole time. So that's what we did. For 2 hours. I think we rode it 6 times around. It was oh my word.
Right.
It was
that was his joy.
Yeah. Yeah, and then...
But that's a lot to ask of the siblings, and so... Unless you can make those little moments work, they all have to compromise. The girls have to go on it when they don't want to. He has to get off of it when he doesn't want to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's a lot. So that's definitely a huge joy in having the only child, is that you get to really just set the adventure around that child, and, of course they have to compromise for you, but they're a lot more willing to. Well, enough.
Well, and even just... I'm just thinking of when I would have one of them standing in line at Disneyland, for example. Then I'm actually more intentional with them too. We talk about whatever.
Totally.
The ride, the line, the
because you're not getting your thoughts interrupted by the other kid who's saying, "Look at that!"
Or "Where's my Cheerios?" Or and so you actually have that special time. And like you said, it's not as special if it's all the time.
Right.
They wouldn't even see it. But you can be more intentional and
totally.
Fun. It's fun.
It has its really great moments. And I think that even though my daughter is no longer an only child, and so a lot of that stuff is shifting now, I think that we really set her up well to be an only child, finding community, having intentional time with family and cousins, and getting those skills developed so that she understands how important her community is, and that's something she wants to pursue. And so as an outgoing introvert, even though she loves her time with the people she loves, she also needs her time at home. And I don't know if that's exacerbated by the fact that she was an only child for so long and that she likes that time, or if she actually is introverted enough that she knows she needs it. Because for her, last week, she actually chose not to go to Cousin Tuesday.
Really?
Because she's old enough to stay at home when my husband is working from home.
Right. She won't interrupt.
She won't interrupt or get hurt or anything. She's right there. He's there. So I felt fine leaving her there, but I can't leave my 3-year-old there for half the day. So he went to Cousin Tuesday by himself, which he loved. And so that was fine. That was good for everybody. But she didn't want to go because she had too many days in a row of social situations. And while she loved every minute of it, she was done.
Yeah.
And I have to work hard to honor that. So again, I never know how much is from her being an only child for so long or just her own unique personality. But, I feel like she looks forward to our events, our Coop Group events. She looks forward to having time with friends because she's developed relationships. So I think she feels a lot less alone and lonely than I think it can feel, especially if you're choosing to homeschool with a child who's already a little bit older. That can definitely be a bigger challenge. Homeschooling an only child when they've been to public school. But that's another thing. You had a community there. Are there people worth kind of plucking out of that community and maintaining relationships with? Did you not even make a community?
Yeah.
If they're not worth communicating with after you leave, then maybe you didn't have the right community for your kid after all.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what I have for homeschooling the only child.
Yeah. Well,
any other thoughts or questions? Since I know you don't have personal experience.
It's just every family is unique, and however many children you have, or if you have single parent or married parents, or if you have grandparents living at home, or there's a different equation for every family, and so. With homeschooling, if it can be an us schooling, and if you can find the community that nurtures all of your souls, then you have found your magic place. You know,
I agree.
Yeah,
well said.
Yeah.
All right, shall we talk about our joy?
Yeah,
we have another joint joy.
We do. It's Galentine's Day that we had.
Yeah, by this point when this airs, it was a couple weeks ago, but it's fresh for us as we're recording this now. So we wanted to share. We spent all that work. Well, you didn't have to.
I didn't have to. I got to just show up this time. Right. It was awesome.
Yeah. But the mom who was planning it for us and I did the work. It was at my house, which was super fun, and it was just a really fantastic night.
It was so fun.
What was your highlight of the night?
Oh, I actually always got giddy about the questions.
Oh, yes.
When someone had a question.
Yeah.
To answer. And then, of course, my favorite things. Well, everything. The waffle bar was so...
the waffle bar.
So good. Yeah. The charcuterie board was beautiful.
Yeah.
The decorations were so, right on,
This was all our friends.
Yeah.
I opened my house and I cleaned it well for everybody and helped set up. But this was all her vision, and she made it really beautiful, and it was really great. And
and I feel like everybody had a good time.
I think so. Was
bonding. And then by the end, one of them, who was a Victoria's Secret bra sizer back in the day, opened herself up to give everyone a measurement.
Yeah, a bra fitting.
Yeah, that's what you said.
So we got out my measuring tape and took turns in the master bedroom and got measured.
I know, that's hilarious.
Wild, but it was fun. It's something that she really enjoys and is passionate about, helping women find their fit.
I know, and it was so funny. Her question is something you're really good at, and she said making balloon animals, and then later we're like, you should have said bra size fitting.
Right. It just sounds so weird, but she has a whole vision for some kind of fun gig on the side in the future.
Yeah, well, see, and just learning things like that,
Yeah.
That's how the community grows. That's how in 10 years we will really feel like we know each other and know that we don't have to dive in hugely and be codependent now. You know what I mean? We can just little by little learn about each other and enjoy hearing these interesting facts.
But now I know our friend touched my boobs, so it's fun. Fun bonding.
Totally.
Yeah.
I turned it down.
You did.
I did.
You didn't need to be fit.
I didn't. Yeah, I'm good.
I won't go into it, but I enjoyed learning her expertise on the subject.
Yeah.
All
right. Well, that's it.